So this is about companies and sustainability, geopolitical challenges for corporate social responsibility. So we are talking about geopolitics, not as such, but their impact on business practices and difficulties to implement sustainability policies or CSR in general. So we have, this is not coming here, okay. So what are we talking about? In the first place, we are talking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we will have one speaker who will explain how her company had to adapt to the new situation and to the specific war situation in Ukraine. So this speaker will be online. It is Nadia Omelchenko, and we will have her in a minute on Teams. And then we will move further on to broader geopolitical evolutions and see what this has as an impact on sustainability and CSR policies. So just to give you an idea, there might be geopolitical changes may be problematic. So I just have here a couple of numbers on the value on the stock market, the share price of some specific companies that are in renewable energy. You have Vestas, wind energy, Siemens Energy, also renewable energy, and then Ørsted. These are the biggest companies in wind energy, and you see how much value they lost over the last months. Now that's bad news. There's less investment, obviously, in this kind of energy, and it has to do with the fact that much of these investments were subsidized by governments. And governments have spend more money to the military these days because of some of this war in Europe. So you have this kind of drawbacks of the geopolitical evolutions. There's other elements. For instance, we all know that the cheap gas from Russia is no longer available, or is not less available. And then people like our German countries like Germany have used again coal for their energy, which is from a climate perspective, of course, dramatic in the short run. So what we might say that these geopolitical changes make it more difficult. There is other aspects as well. For instance, there is other aspects like, for instance, the fact that global business, like globalization, and international foreign trade has dropped a little bit. It's kind of the typical move to more and more globalized economy is a bit stopped, on hold, because of tensions between the US and China, and this makes a bit some aspects of the economy also more difficult. So there is these changes, and it makes it there is an uncertainty in the economy, and this may be at the one hand a negative impact, have a negative impact on CSR policies. But on the other hand, it might also be an opportunity. So in the short run, it may be difficult, but in the long run, it may actually be an opportunity to implement quicker and better the transition, the energy transition, and CSR policies in general. So we will talk about this kind of double-sided aspects of the geopolitical influences or situation on CSR policies, the kind of constraint that they represent, and also the opportunity. So we will first listen to our guest who is online, Nadia Omelchenko. Nadia runs an IT company in Ukraine and had to change many things because of the war situation in Kiev. So is it possible to switch to Nadia now and to have her on screen? Yeah, not yet there.
Hello.
Hello, Nadia. We cannot see. Ah, yeah, now we can see you. Not really quite here, but there. Okay. Good morning, Nadia. You are in Kiev, and so we are happy to have you here in Lille on screen, at least, not in person. But it's great that thanks to technology that we can hear you this morning here in Lille. I propose we give you the floor. You tell a bit your story about what happened during February 22 until now, and how your company had, and the business people in general in Ukraine, had to adapt to the new situation, and how you have implemented resilience and sustainability in your company. So we give you the floor. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. My name is Nadia Melchenko. I'm from Ukraine, from Kiev. I'm the Vice President of IT Integrator. IT Integrator is the largest system integrator in Ukraine with 500 employees and branches all over the Ukraine. And this is our story. Our team began preparing a business strategy that would take into account all the risk of possible full-scale armed conflict in Ukraine in September 2021, when the first reports from the military and intelligence agencies from different countries appeared. These active actions of the aggressor country began in December 21, in January 22, with large-scale cyber attacks on enterprises of strategic industries of Ukraine, the banking sector, the media, electronic resources of Ukrainian government, which our experts also participated in blocking and analyzing, thus taking into account all types of threats and their high probability. In autumn 2021, the IT Integrator Board we developed a business contingency plan that would ensure the sustainability of our company under different situations. So we had to care about our information systems of our clients, the largest enterprises and institutions of Ukraine, of the private and the public sector, in the event of a highly probable outbreak of war in January and February 2022. So the first rule was to be prepared, though we didn't know exactly what to be prepared for, but still. All of these actions, as shown by our experience in 22-23, were correct. In accordance with our plan, we focused on 5 key priorities of our wartime activities, which would ensure business continuity, safety of our team, safety of our warehouses, army support, of course, directly and through charity foundation, collaboration with other IT companies, vendors, distributors, collaboration and with community support. So here are some of our actions that we implemented at 22-23 within each of these 5 sectors. Continuity, maintaining the sustainability and flexibility of business process in the changing condition of wartime, what it means for us. First of all, provision of backup office in Lviv, before the start of a full-scale invasion, and an additional evacuation bases near Kiev, company cars, and other assistance to the team families in February, March 2022. The second very important thing was to understand what time your position. So everyone performs the task for which they have the skills and resources at the moment, deviation from the clear job description, and 24/7 openness of the CEO to suggestions, needs, communications with the team. We also provided a flex time work schedule, of course, from 2022 and to the present, to the COVID, we've already done it, but it was very good practice to have such flex time for our employees, so they could work from any point, any city of Ukraine and other countries. So that's why it helps us to support continuity of work, so they can work remotely. Next step is to achieve new knowledges and skills for the team in wartime, including the Survival English project to improve the level of English for the IT integrated team, which continues to work during the war, and it was launched in March. Freedom English, we do it together with CSR Development Center. Also, we together the company back in our headquarters, we had to ensure that the definite level of security. That's why we supplied our bomb shelters as with all food and products that could be needed under different circumstances. And also we did a lot of work of informing our staff how to act under different work conditions, because safety was our second priority, psychological and physical safety. Because people should know that they can come to our work, to our office, and they can work safely. So we provide flickers, power banks, rechargeable lamps to the team families during the 2022 lockdowns. So taking into account mental and physical health of the team in wartime, so we added corporate psychologists, lectures by cardiologists, therapists, psychological training, art therapy, so vitamin days, photo contests, so somehow to support the level of normality, of normal life among our team. So we also do a lot of work together with our former competitors, but now we are all colleagues. Our third priority is to combine and to develop the platform for our defense and government structures, so they could use our consolidated warehouses, because we have and we have a shortage of some equipment now here in Ukraine. So we support projects with global vendors to distribute free cybersecurity products to Ukrainian strategic industry enterprises. We also started many very important initiatives like unbreakable education. For example, we do understand that many of Ukrainian children, they do not have laptops, just ordinary things. That's why we gather used laptops and we give them to our children in the frontline schools. We also provide Wi-Fi in shelters, because many universities, they do not have such Wi-Fi's. So we had to help them to study even under airstrikes. We gathered, for example, we understand that many Ukrainians children are abroad, and we had to help them with Ukrainian books, even just to keep their connected with Ukrainian language and to develop their Ukrainian language. That's very important for Ukraine now. We also launched many projects how we keep our cultural front, how we support Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian theaters, Ukrainian museums, because they are very difficult situations now. So it's also to be done by us, by other IT companies. So we even launched the IT ESG hub, just to gather all the initiatives and to move it forward. Also, the very important focus is our army, our military defenses. That's why we provide a lot of products for them, material support, technology support for defenders, and here is the opportunity. Of course, the war is war, but if you can look abroad, you will find the opportunity. So we've seized the opportunity, and we've launched many new products for defendants now. So we develop new products we hadn't developed before the war. That was also our plan for sustainability for our company, to develop new markets and to develop new products. And of course, community support are very important focus for public-private partnership. We provide solution for community security and educational cooperation with mayors, for example, of different towns. And because we do understand what's going on now, and I've told that we have many branches all over the Ukraine, and it was very difficult to lose our branch in Mariupol, and we tried for 2 months to take our people out of Mariupol, and now we do not have the branch there. We lost several branches all over the Ukraine, and thus many of our employees have moved to other cities, and we help them. And we understand what's going on in different parts of Ukraine. And for example, it was very, very difficult, very, very important to help Mykolaiv and Kherson region that were left without drinking water as a result of the Russian army's blowing up of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power station dam. Thus, all tasks under the IT integration wartime business continuity plan 22-23 were aimed at supporting the team and families, including ensuring financial stability, psychological stability, and health. So we provide huge assistance to the armed forces of Ukraine and caring for defendants reunited from the front, because about 20% of our employees have already been mobilized. So I could share some challenges for 2024 for Ukrainian business here. It's first of all labor market crisis, because we lose our men and thus there is more opportunities for women. And luckily we were helping and supporting women and gender diversity long before the war. That's why we have many women, and they can also provide a lot to business continuity, and that's good the point to keep gender diversity in your company. So also we in 2024 we would care about mental and physical health of our team, and also we would help our army, and we would help our culture, just to keep all the Ukrainians' tradition, all our very important values, just to our children, because in Ukraine still there are a lot of children and people. So we face, all Ukrainians company, all Ukrainian business face these challenges. And using your floor, I want to thanks to all the partners, to all the international partners for your assistance, for your help, for different kind of support that we have, and even for your invitation today to let me show that our Ukrainian business works. We are here, so we do our business, we are okay, and we develop new products. We are looking for new partners, and so let's work together for the victory.
Okay, thank you very much for this thing. Okay. We got. She's lost. We cannot ask questions. There you are. So you lost you from screen. Okay, you're back. Okay. So maybe we can ask the people here on the floor first if you have some reactions or questions. I have one. So to start with, so we have heard about how the mission of your company has radically changed. I mean, we don't hear a kind of company that has a kind of narrow mission, but a very broad one. You try to use the resources you have, the equipment, your whatever competence, your skills to be useful for the whole society, in fact, and the army even, and not only focusing on shareholder value maximization or something very narrow. So, it's a very broad mission. And then the question is this economically, is this viable? How can you manage your company in kind of really narrow business terms? You have to pay your employees at the end of the month. Is this a challenge, or how difficult it is to survive as a company in this situation? We have understood that what you're doing is much broader than what you did before. You're focusing on many other things that you normally would not have focused on. So how can you keep the business viable economically in financial terms? Oh. We can't hear you. Oh, we can't. Sorry, we can't.
That was,
yeah, okay.
I think, in
Okay.
that. Yes, that our mission is much more broader now, because we do not deal with competitors, with competitive market, but we deal with existential threats for all Ukraine. So there is no time for competing, there is time for collaboration, and that's the main focus, for collaborate with everyone in every field. And as for the finance, it's a good question, because it's very, very important for business to keep contingency, and with the help of money, of course. And we had our financial strategy, so we started to make reserve funds long before the war. That's why we were lucky to have money enough to keep for 3 or 4 months. But it wasn't enough, of course, if we didn't start to produce new products and new services. And that's why we've been prepared only for 3-4 months with our finance. But it helped us a lot.
Hello, Nadia. I'm Thomas, and I feel I have an IT services company here in France. We are 700 employees, so we have similarities. And first of all, I think we feel very lucky to be here, comfortably settled in Lille, listening to you and to what you've been through. So congrats for what you've done. I can't imagine what it would have been like if 20% of my employees had to be sent to do war for the country suddenly, and how we would have to reorganize everything. It's completely crazy. So yeah, huge congrats for that. Regarding the theme of our conference and what you've described, how would you consider that all these hard times helped you to become a better business for good? What impacts does it have on what you are now, and how you try to use business as a force for good?
The first thing is very important. Ask yourself: are you ready? Are you, as CEO, are you ready to work under such circumstances? Because all business in Ukraine, depends on the CEO, on the owner of the company. So that's why many founders, they came back to the business now, and they are in business now, because you are the model of how your people would react to all the circumstances. If you are optimistic, if you say, oh, okay, so tomorrow all the night we have bombing. Okay, so I do understand that my people a little bit tired in the morning, because they couldn't sleep all the night. But that's why maybe our team, they know how to react to this situation. And so first of all, you have to understand what your resources as CEO, what you can do for your company, because as a CEO, I can see, and Vice President, I can see the new opportunities, of course, and I should. And I have to see the new opportunities for our company, and that's because I am. I know myself. I know how I would react to different situations. I know my responsibility as CEO because I'm responsible for the whole team, and not only for the team. You are responsible for the team and their families and their animals, their pets and their homes, and you're all responsible not only for your employees and the safety of their kids as well. And that's why before the war, when I understood that the war would come, I sent my daughters, because I did understand that I should care about business family, but I started to care about my own family. That's why I should know that my family is safe. First, my daughters are safe. So that was my first priority, and then I could do a lot for business because I insured my family.
Okay. Are there questions here in the room or something? No one has questions? You have a question? Okay. Go ahead, Maria.
Hi, Nadia. I'm Maria. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm also in awe of all of the work that you've done, and congratulate you and applaud you for the resilience you've demonstrated, and everything that you and the team have kind of overcome over the past 2 years. And thank you so much for inspiring us today. One question I had is, during times like this, it puts different issues into perspective. And I think, you're talking about the importance of caring for the people who work with you and their families. And that's such a fundamental value that you have as an organization, but also as humanity. How does that help reset different issues within an organization? So for example, an organization that's committed to improving their environmental footprint and things like that, when different issues like this come up, how does that kind of realign your moral compass of what you need to prioritize within an organization at one time? Or are you still able to manage your social impact with your environmental impact as well?
Good question, because sometimes I think that we do so much work, so it's enormous work, huge work, but we cannot stop caring. It's impossible not stop caring about our environment. Though I know that I have to prioritize, I cannot, and my team, we cannot help in all fields. That's why we choose our focuses. So first of all, our army, and the second is our education. So our kids. So we are fully focused on these two things: education, because we want our children to have good quality education, and our army, because we can do nothing without our victory. So we even lose our basic things of joy. For example, today in Ukraine, the first snow fell, and it's very, very beautiful where it's snowing, but we cannot feel joy even in these simple things, because what we care, it's about our soldiers, that they are in the trench, in the front line, and it is very cold for them. That's why, we learn how to to build our own resilience. And we say, oh, okay, so what we can do now, what we can send them more to provide them to be warmer in all these conditions. That's what we think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your story and for all the courage you display. And really, it's really. I think most of the people here are impressed. And so we wish you really the best for the coming months. I mean, it can take still a long time. We don't know how. You already talked. We talked about before about the challenges for 2024. Also in terms of human resources, because of the people who are mobilized, and then you not necessarily have the people who have the right training and education that you need in your company. So there is challenges to come. So we wish you the very best. Thank you very much for this witness. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Now we will switch to the same topic, a bit broader, other aspects in terms of geopolitical problems that may lead to opportunities or challenges for responsible business. So we have today here two people. I forgot to mention Marina, who spoke yesterday evening here at the forum. Unfortunately, and that's maybe something that the organizers should think about for the next time. She had some oysters, and she's totally sick because of the oysters. And so we don't have Marina here this morning. It's a pity, because her testimony, her message yesterday was very nice but short, and she would have developed it here this morning, but we have this health problem. So now we go on with B Corp and B Lab, the people who try to develop the ideas of the B Corporation. And we have two people here. We have Maria Correa, who's working in Amsterdam for B Corp. She's Brazilian, and she will explain the strategy and the approach of B Lab, and also what the geopolitical changes have as an impact on B Corp. And the resilience and sustainability approach in this. And then we have Thomas Broussard, who actually is the responsible of the impact, the director of impact of one B Corp corporation, which is Norsis, also IT, just like Nadia's company Nadia Omelchenko's company in Ukraine. And so we will first listen to Maria, and then later on, Thomas will complete the discussion with concrete examples of what happens in France. So, give you the floor, Maria.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for joining us today, very early in the morning for such a heavy topic as well. Before we jump in, I just wanted to ask a candid question. How many of you know of B Lab and the B Corp movement? Maybe a show of hands. Okay, maybe about half. Great. Are there any B Corps in the room, in the audience? No?
I'm here.
Great. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to do a brief introduction of the B Corp movement, but then really get to the meat of what we want to talk about today, which is the role of business in navigating geopolitical challenges. So firstly, I think sorry, I'm trying to deal with this microphone. Yeah, maybe. Hello. Is it better? Yeah, it sounds better. Great. So firstly, just acknowledging, of course, we're going to talk about some ways that business can play a role in being a part of the solution, but it's impossible to ignore how much business has contributed to the problem. Right? The reason we're here today is because the current economic system and a lot of the negative impacts that we experience, the devastation of our environment, the inequalities, has been driven by businesses in many different ways. Thank you. So there's lots of different statistics. Of course, the inequality between the rich and the poor. I think there was a study that came out last week that the richest 1% in the world make up the same carbon emissions as the poorest over 40% or something like that. And also, of course, the disparity of wealth. The urgency of the climate crisis that we're dealing with in the race against the 7 years that we have to address these problems, the conditions that many people are still working in today. But I promise I won't make this a depressing conversation. This is where we come in, and I don't know if this slide doesn't work, but let's see. Okay. Pretend this background is black. And yeah, this is where we come in as B-Lab. We're basically the nonprofit network that was founded in 2006 that's aiming at transforming the economic system. And our vision is of creating an inclusive, equitable, and regenerative economic system for all people in the planet. And I think, some of these words that are underlined here underpin the importance of you can't treat any of these issues in isolation. It needs to be about, creating a positive benefit across all of these categories. You can't have climate action without climate justice. And this is what we seek to kind of create out in the world. We're a global movement with global standards, and I think this is an incredibly important thing to highlight when we're talking about geopolitical issues, because they, of course, disproportionately affect different parts of the world in different ways. So when we're talking about the role of business, it's not just the businesses here in Europe, but also those in my home in Brazil, in Africa, across the global south, and how our global standards can influence business change and transform the economy in different parts of the world. So the B in B Corp movement, or in B Lab, stands for benefit for all. And this is about really shifting the role of business to look from, a profit-driven ambition to really looking at how we can benefit all stakeholders, not just shareholders. So the workers, community, customers, and the planet. There's lots of different companies across different sectors that are B Corps, and that's one of the main things that we do as an organization. We certify businesses across different sectors. There's many different SMEs, but also many multinational companies. And we now proudly have 7,700 B Corps all across the world. Over 3,000 of those are here in Europe, and they make up a huge workforce, so over 700,000 employees all over the world across sectors, who face many different issues when we're talking about geopolitical challenges. So our role is to really try to create behavior change within companies, cultural change about the role of businesses, but also structural change from a regulatory perspective to really change the role of business in society. And we tried to look at that through the lens of impact across 5 different areas. So workers, environment, customers, community, and also fundamentally the way a business is governed. So these are kind of the 5 impact areas that are the underpinning principles of our certification, and also, a framework for businesses to really measure their impact, measure and improve their impact over time. And there's one core value when it comes to, what we really see as the purpose of businesses out in the world. And we have this Declaration of Interdependence that every company signs. Thomas' business has signed. And it really kind of underpins the values that are true to kind of business as a force for good. And you'll see some of the lines here. We believe that we must be the change that we seek in the world. Business should be conducted as if people and places matter. There's lots of really beautiful thoughts here. But when you're faced with issues like the global pandemic, like war, like elections, what Bolsonaro did in Brazil, and then in this week, the Argentinian elections as well. War, as we heard from Nadia's example, cost of living crisis, resource scarcity. This Declaration of Interdependence starts feeling like a bit of a utopia. So what do? Good news, and this is where we get to the optimistic bit, is really the role that businesses can play in society today. When we've lost trust and faith in all of our other organizations, when our governments are failing us, businesses can really step up and act and really have the opportunity to lead here. So, for example, the Edelman Trust Barometer really shows that businesses are the one trusted actor. And when you compare kind of the trust in business compared to government, especially in places like South America, there's really an opportunity for businesses to lead here and be this pivotal change and drive this pivotal change in society that we need. So I'm going to share 3 core principles that I think are fundamental in general, but particularly when faced with kind of the adversity and volatility of geopolitical issues. And the first is about really kind of embedding values into an organization and having guiding principles to inspire and enable more businesses to do that. So global standards really play a role in kind of making a business more resilient to these changes, and experiencing less volatility if there's changes in leadership, if there's external factors, and really shifting away from this concept of shareholder primacy to a model that promotes stakeholder governance and really locks a business's value, regardless of what's happening out into the world. The second core principle is about really redefining what success looks like. We need to shift away, we know, as Gerrit shared earlier, we know that there are going to be short-term implications. So how do we really get business leaders and investors and the entire community to really see success through a different lens, to really kind of value long-term business performance? And one of the key kind of actors in this space is investors. So really demonstrating both the resilience and the financial performance of B Corps. And earlier this year, B-Lab formed a partnership with NASDAQ. So now the One Report uses the B Impact Assessment and uses some of our metrics to assess a business's benefit for society as well as its environmental performance. So that's key in really shifting kind of that mindset of the role of businesses during these times. And actually, just in a timely way, this report was just released yesterday about the financial performance and resilience of B Corps that looked at data and really compared the data of B Corps and ordinary businesses. Over 2,000 B Corps and 4,000 ordinary businesses all around the world, so looking at Chile, Australia, US, UK, and compared during the period of the pandemic, what was the revenue, how did businesses perform from a financial perspective, and then also what was the resilience of the companies, how many businesses went out of business. And in both of these metrics, you can see that B Corps kind of outperformed other businesses. And of course, there's many different factors that also contribute to these data points, but it is a way to start shifting that mindset. And I don't know, Thomas, if you also want to jump in and share some examples from France and what that looks like in the context here.
So about France, we've run a study too to measure how companies felt resilient in these hard times, especially the last 3 years with COVID and other issues we've faced. And it was interesting to see that 80% of French B Corps, so we are about 370 B Corps in France currently, said we do feel more resilient than our competitors facing these issues in our sectors, in our industries. And 40% of them said we feel really resilient. I'm going to say it another way. Over the past 12 months in France, the number of companies that went in redressement judiciaire, je ne sais pas le dire en anglais ça, et je pense que dans la salle vous le comprendrez mieux comme ça, doubled in France over the past 12 months, especially because the states stopped to give money for post-COVID resilience. So that is to say that these companies who are dealing with how can the business have a positive impact facing social, environmental, geopolitical issues are being more and more financially performing than the rest of their sectors and industries. And that's a good news because it means that more and more all the businesses will start to be interested by that because they want to remain viable and win money, right, at the end of the day and at the end of the year. So I hope what you've shown there, Maria, will have a concrete and real translation in France.
Thank you so much. And the last principle is something that Nadia mentioned as well, of the importance of collaboration. I think in all times, but especially during hard times, it's really important to recognize that to address the massive issues that we're facing today, we need to embrace the spirit of interdependence and really engage in collective actions and coalitions. Nobody's going to do this alone. And within the B Corp movement, of course, we're trying to transform how an individual business operates, but also bring together a community of businesses that can transform their industries and tackle some of the biggest social and environmental issues that we face today. So we have lots of different examples of working groups or coalitions, either industry-specific, like the B Corp Beauty Coalition, that you have competitors coming together to address issues like green logistics, like packaging, like responsible sourcing. And also other forms of coalitions, like the Interdependence Coalition of over 500 different businesses that are coming together to advocate for legislative changes that are holding the directors of businesses accountable across Europe, so not just in one country. So there's lots of different examples of this, and I think also similarly in France and across Europe, I think the importance of not just businesses coming together, but different movements and entities coming together. So I'll once again tap to Thomas to maybe shed some light onto that and what that could look like.
On va passer au français, je pense que ça fera du bien à tout le monde.
Okay, let's shift to French, if you agree. Merci, Maria. Thank you, Maria. I have two hats. I work on the IT sector in the Hauts-de-France, North-East, we're 700. But North-East is B Corp, and therefore convinced that this movement, this community, the certification responds or answers to the limitation of other certification. Therefore, I am the president of the movement in France. Therefore, I would suggest we could speak about this movement, but looking at our region here, Hauts-de-France. Nadia was really striking, and it is very impressive. I don't know what we could have done as North-East if we would have her situation. However, we live in a society here in France where there are a couple of issues, the sharing of value, of prosperity, protecting the living and the environment. And as Maria said, today we see that states, for whatever reasons, find it difficult to respond quickly and at the right scale to the environmental challenges. It's not a critique, it's just an assessment, an assise. And then the stakeholders from NGOs don't have, for instance, enough means. They receive subsidies, states pay less. And the foundation of my company in the last weeks receives a lot of requests from associations who do not have enough funding. In this ecosystem of different stakeholders, who can all contribute to reinvent our society, the way it works, the sharing of power and value, and considering the environment, the companies, the organizations have capital, talents, skills. They can decide and innovate in very quick times. So they have all the cards in hand in order to react proactively much more than other stakeholders. Let's look at Corona. In a week, industries began to produce disinfection gels. And they stopped afterwards. There's something we've seen, like, for instance, the cooperation between competitors. It was just sad that we needed the Corona crisis, in order to have people move and change. Thanks to it's good to have competition. It's not negative as a principle, but there are some elements where we should not be competitors. Like, for instance, it was striking that after the Rana Plaza catastrophe for 10 years ago in Bangladesh, there were a lot of deaths in a industrial site that collapsed. All the competitors in the textile sector were in agreement to secure security in Bangladesh. They developed a lot of measures against for fire protection, security of buildings. It lasted for a couple of years. 700 or 800 sites were equipped for the living and working condition in textile. We should be competitors. We should work together. That was a good example. So we should be competitors around fashion, around the type of clothes, but not in the field of working condition. Let's see Ukraine, for instance. It's a terrible catastrophe. It's a war or the corona. People achieve to go beyond the competition. So I'm not saying the market rules are not good or so, but I think there are aspects and elements where we should cooperate more. The example of B Corps and other coalitions, these are people who understood that the market rules, the profit is good, but there are some issues where we should not be discussing around. It's interesting to see what happened in Bangladesh was an a posteriori reaction afterwards, and it because of negative practices, and they knew about those practices and they were the cause of those bad practices. But here it is positive, it is proactive, it's wanting to have a proactive, positive impact. I think this is different. And in big organizations, people do act rather for financial reasons. But B Corps and other coalitions, we're not the only ones, they want to have a positive impact on law. A question: do you think it's normal that a company who is trying to solve social and environmental problems is taxed like another corporation who works for profit only? Because knowing that taking care of people, taking care of water, wastewater, and so on, this is paid by our taxes. So we need to make sure this type of corporations are being taken into account. We're not the only one. There are other movements, and we are calling for an adapted tax depending on the field of the organizations. Let me come back to the situation here in the Hauts-de-France. Do you think here that on your daily life in this region, your activity has been impacted negatively by the geopolitical or environmental context? Do you feel threatened? That's not a lot of people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's what I expected. Why? We talk about the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. It's very far away. But in France, there was a very hot topic. It's about the access to water. There were villages in the Pyrenees who don't have access to drinking water. In September 22, with Narcisse, we went to visit a farm in permaculture. It is near a river, but the river is dry. The soil is dry. And it's here in France, and was a child. There was so much water. I remember big rains. So let's not forget that the condition, the ecosystem we live in, are more and more complex. The geopolitical subject here. This is the subject is resilience. Let me give you a couple of examples. The COVID year. Globally, the business did assume, and most of the companies just continue working. and it's not working well. In the IT sector, for instance, in my sector, the IT market is rather good market usually. But in the COVID year, it was 4% decreasing. Northeast, we had 2% growth. Even so, Northeast has an approach as a company. There was no dividend paid out since 10 years. It's 20 years of additional vacation to its workers. The climate strategy is probably better than the others. But as sincerely as we can, we're investing in this issue. Our first carbon balance sheet is from 2007. So it's something that we really took into account since a long time, much earlier. And it helped us to be resilient. We have half turnover as the rest of the sector. We have stability of our teams. We can react in a more adapted way to very unforeseen events. It's like the study you spoke about, Maria. And I think it's a very good news. More and more companies have a high environmental or social engagement and commitment, and they show it is feasible economically. And the more we can show this and prove it, the more the economic world will be changing and shifting. In the studies, we see in researchers the elements you talk about show that the responsible companies are more resilient. The numbers we have, the figures we have are based on concrete elements, like, for instance, the turnover observed. It's an indicator because companies are being managed in a more responsible way than the average of others. So short-term is an investment, because when you recruit for the commitment, for the vacation, as you said, it's a commitment. However, it pays out. It is profitable on the long term. So it's always a kind of ambiguity, short term, and a result only in terms of profit and sustainability long term. This is what we can observe. Therefore, a question to you. We see companies who become B Corp corporation. It's not easy to qualify. However, question with regard to the figures. Is it companies who belong to a specific industry, or where it's easier to have such a transition period? So it is rather the figures showing that you're in a good sector and easier, or is it because B Corp that you become more profitable? So what's it's like the egg and the hen. Is there a bias in these figures? Because some industries could be easier to transition than others.
It's okay to switch back to English. Sorry, désolé. Yeah, so I think, well, one of the interesting things about the B Corp movement is there's 160 different industries certified. So this study, and also just the community as a whole, takes into account very different situations, and also companies of all sizes. While the movement is founded on SMEs, there's increasingly more and more multinationals and large enterprises who are joining a part of the movement. Of course, it's challenging to say that the numbers are causation. At best we can show correlation. But B Corps are required to recertify every 3 years to prove their accountability and their transparency. And in that's where these numbers are for, really showing that verified kind of impact improvement, but also the financial resilience and whatnot. And I think it's interesting, some of the examples, Narcissus as well, we've talked about businesses who, from the beginning, started with, an innovative idea and, were really purpose-driven companies. However, more and more, you're seeing businesses using our framework to transform the way that they operate. So you have big companies who, are part of the problem who can now kind of be a part of the solution, and they're seeing the benefits of that. But it is challenging for them to convince, their different stakeholders, their investors, their boards, and so we're hoping that some of these numbers and some of these case studies also help change that.
Let's switch again. Je vais compléter en parlant de la France.
So now let's switch to English. Talking about France, and when we've shown figures about France, shown by Maria, we see we have companies of different sizes, but we have a profile, some the B Corp, and we also have mission companies, and we have companies with less than 50 employees. And it's what we notice is that we don't have, we don't see emerging, very big companies, but smaller companies that are very much involved in their sector. And in the last few years, we've seen mission companies or B Corp companies merging with very large companies, because the idea is maybe replicating or duplicating those smaller activities. So in a few years, we will probably get with a business useful to humans without destroying the planet. And answering to this question is something which is extremely difficult. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, in our company, we're trying to ask ourselves the right questions. And okay. And we want to be CSR mission companies, etc. But how to answer to this question as how can be useful to humans without destroying resources, because now we know we need to protect them. And we discover permaculture, and everything is based on some principles. So two of them, preserving the planet and preserving humans. This you all know, but the third ethical principle is much more innovating. You need to set limits and share richness, wealth. And up to now, we've never been working like this, because the objective is not just profit. Profit is just the result of an activity, of a business. Then it's those things stick together, one with each other. It's not just, planting a few trees and going on making profit, because otherwise my shareholders won't be happy with it. So I need to regenerate, I need to restore things. And the big change is there. And maybe this, why shouldn't it be the basics in order to develop a company? And here, actually, we innovated and created a new model, which is called the Perma Company. And we thought that if we want the world to evolve, we need to do this. Maybe what I see in the way we conduct a company, there's a great amount of resilience that comes from that. So when you say, for example, no, our company wants to contribute to the protection of human beings, and you have people, developing code for a customer, I think they're completely detached from each other. But actually, something must be tangible at each level. So setting limits and sharing wealth, use this in every action. And this will allow you and will help you to take the best decisions in order to have a more sustainable, a better world. And was my witnessing, and it's a result of the experience of 15 years of experience in my business. It's something I had never thought of, but it's a very simple tool, but it's a very powerful tool. And I hope what I said will be useful to you, and maybe we can now answer to questions from the audience. Well, yesterday I attended a session, and there was someone from a brewery, and he was also speaking about this idea of limit. So they developed their brewery, and they were exporting to Japan and the United States about 20% of their production. And actually, they were also traveling in order to promote their products. And then they calculated their CO2 impact. And they said, well, what we do is completely nonsense. So we will stop exporting to Japan and the United States. And we will develop our business within Europe, because the rest is just complete nonsense. And I thought this is just, putting a limit. And it's courageous, because actually they also limit part of their profit and of their turnover. It's not like they're having the San Pellegrino and water coming from Italy. Why are we transporting this from one country to another? So for a company, it's not obvious to say, this is a limit I want to have. And for example, as the cost of that export is too high, I will put a limit. And well, that makes me think about, well, maybe why do you really think that Americans or Japanese need beer which is brewed in Belgium? So I'm not sure, actually. And that makes me think about the ethics committee that we created, and that actually was helping us when we had to take decisions within the company. And we had a French customer that was developing a catalog solution, and he was distributing it in Russia. And 2 years ago, one of the customers actually asked the committee, asking, do we still have to work like this? Do we need to have this kind of project? So the council actually started to analyze, and he gave us the tools for us to find the right solution. And because actually you need to ask yourself the good questions. And actually, the customer came to our workshops, and actually we decided together. And then the final idea was that are we going to work with Russia or not? And what is the best solution? And this is why I think we might find the right conditions to work
the best way. And when we speak about making business in that country, especially in the last 2 years, for example, the online catalog in order to order food, that could be great because in Russia during winter time, it's very nice to have your food brought at home. So these are very complex questions, but we were able to work with the customer, and the solution was to say we will not develop more, but we won't cut with that customer. Okay, maybe in the audience you have a questions or a comment? Thank you. Hello, Eronotre from ADEME. Thank you very much. And we were able to take some detachment with the subject, and I share everything I've heard. I just noticed you were a little negative when you were speaking about the public sector or the state, when we were speaking about transition in order to share and be more collaborative. So maybe being more optimistic from our side would, and I manage a fund, and in order to distribute a number of funds to companies. Today we're saying that we need to accelerate, and but we need to finance things that are useless, and we decided to engage ourselves in eco-design, and we want to work that are an example and that promote being sober. And we also want to work with companies that are involved within their territory. And I have a question. Today, concretely, how do we do? Can you help us to target the right companies? So are they companies with 50, no more than 50 employees? Maybe companies that are not B Corp, in order to make them become B Corp? Or do we need to go even further? What are the limits? And maybe, or do we need to work with companies that want to cut down the consumption of water, the consumption of energy, or companies engaged on results? So the answer was given partly by Thomas. He was speaking about, putting some pressure on the government in order to adapt fiscal rules. So either you give the money or you oblige people to pay. But I could add something anyway. Maybe, Maria, if you want to add something. Well, maybe you know, because we actually work with ADEME on a project for a platform. Actually, on the one side, we need to have and to look for very good examples, and we have them. And for example, we have Clinitex in the Hauts-de-France. It's 3,000 to 4,000 employees, and then they have inclusion, they have diversity. But on the other side, you must think that in terms of a profound transformation, that is quite very difficult. For example, let's make an example. If you change, or last time you changed your smartphone, did you take a model dating back 20 years? Generally, no. You take a modern one with the latest technology. So when you have a B Corp, which is the only certification measuring the impact of the business on the environmental stakes and social stakes, well, you need to go on with that. You need to go on that path because, for example, when we heard Nadia speaking this morning, when you planned something, you need to go. So starting from now, you need to use the latest tools. And as for a larger structure, it's those companies, those larger companies, it's just because they will be successful on a number of fields. For example, Norsis. Actually, we will take with us all other companies that actually will follow us. Okay, well, I could speak about 2 hours about that. Do you want to add something?
If I understood the question correctly as well, I think one of the other things that we see in order to get more companies behind this, one is that the B impact assessment, the tool that's used for B Corp certification, is actually free. So even if you're not a B Corp, any business can use that to measure their impact and benchmark themselves to improve. And what we do see is other businesses using that as a framework. So either the entire BIA or aspects of the B impact assessment to select their partners, their suppliers, or even investing in running boot camps and things like that to train different partners. So of course it's important to look at B Corps and other purpose-driven companies as those leading the way, but also critical to get other businesses behind it. There's questions.
Ok, merci.
Moi, j'avais alors pas tout à fait une question, mais
Well, I had a comment. You spoke about fiscal measures. You can become a cooperative, so you have you feel less the weight of fiscal rules. So I think the state can offer solutions. So maybe Norsis could become a cooperative. Well, it's sometimes ambiguous when we have the public sector intervening, but sometimes we have signals that actually don't give us the same information. For example, ADEME has a state mandate with a clear mission, and on the one side, for example, we have the glyphosate, which can be still be used for about 10 years, and on the other side, we have a completely different message. So hopefully we have some actors, business actors, that have a mission which is completely different. I have a question. So the stakes and the economical situation we experience today show that some companies have difficulties in developing the transitions because they had issues in having sources of raw material. So actually they couldn't go on transforming because they hadn't enough means to do that. Which concrete tools could you use to help them? Because those companies would like to go on within their transformation, but they just can't.
So much for your question. It's a really important one, and one that I think it's one thing to say idealistically what you want to do and have those values aligned. It's another to put it in practice, both for small businesses who might not have the resources, or for big businesses who need to, completely transform the way that they operate. And indeed, for example, there's lots of businesses that want to switch to 100% recycled materials or eliminate virgin plastics, but actually they can't even source enough recycled materials based on the resources. So it's difficult. I think it's important to identify what are the key areas that are more clearly contributing to some of those problems. So what can have the biggest scale of impact? And then I think this is also when coalitions come into play, of kind of joining forces with other businesses. So for example, Patagonia wants to create outdoor material, outdoor clothing made, without using kind of virgin plastic or other materials. They don't have the funds to transform an entire factory, so they knock on doors of companies like Nike or things like that to kind of come together and work with a different factory to really kind of source those materials and kind of subsidize it. So it's really important to find ways to kind of collaborate to address these issues. Same with kind of prices in the cocoa sector. There is an increased cost to that. And I think it's also important, again, to setting the limits, realizing that, maybe profits won't be as high if you're committed to driving this, but you'll have more longer term benefits and resilience in that end.
Je continue de jouer mon rôle de réancrage.
So I'll go on with the Hauts-de-France, and I would like to speak about Sébastien Tissage. It's certified B Corp. Actually, you need tools to implement things, and if you take the 23 business models measured by B Corp, and actually it's a set of ideas, and you have questions which are very much in link with a territory. And maybe you speak about chain values, about developing services or products that actually need to preserve resources. So this is a concrete tool, and to see how we can, it's very well speaking about the salaries, but we also have to speak about the finality of the business. And they design textile, and before they had processes that were worldwide, spread worldwide, and asking themselves all those questions, they said, how could we act differently in order to improve the resources of the territory? And actually, they are creating at the moment some type of a coalition. So they acted together with other actors of the territory in order to develop hemp culture, and therefore create the conditions. And actually, they're working in an ecosystem with other actors. And actually, they ask themselves the good questions, and how can we have a lower impact on our environment? And how can we produce the same product but with a lower impact?
I'm coming back to the global level. Your third principle, Yves Chouinard from Patagonia in his company 100% of the shares to a foundation, and Patagonia belongs to Planet. And it was surprising. It's very good what he did, right? But it was surprising that the press commented and that a lot of people were suspicious. They said, well, there's some reason behind it, probably a tax reason, or he did probably hide some money somewhere, or they couldn't, it was not possible to understand that he would renounce to this $3 billion and say, in agreement with his children. And it is, the reason why I'm talking about is about sharing wealth. But in the business world, people didn't feel well. It was surprising, and the comments were more surprising than his gesture, really. It was not people were not used to it. Right. Just as an example. Right. I have 3 small questions. Could you come back to the notion of companies who have a mission? What is the definition? How does it look like? Second, you spoke about agriculture. Is agriculture interested in B Corp? And why is there a drawback in the organic? And thirdly, where can we find the book Permaculture of the company? Right, 3 short answers. This company with a mission has a reason to be. It is in the statutes of the companies, and the statute is associated with objectives, with a social and environmental impact. And this company will be controlled every 2 years by an independent agency that will check whether the company is setting the means to get to the goals. It's very complementary to B Corp, which is more acting on international standards. This company with a mission is very much individual in a way. It's each company. With regard to the organic agriculture, there are some companies working in the food industry in France and in other countries. The industry is interested because it's a sector it's an industry that knows they need to migrate to something else. However, it's not a good year. A lot of B Corp working in distribution of the food industry. They say the organic industry, that's not a good year. We have a good conflict, I think, with Jean Covissier. It's the end of the year and the end of the months. It is just too expensive. And the French adjust their budget and their food expenses to their budget. That's the fact. Third question, the book, Perma Entreprise, is on the internet. I don't think you can find it here. And there is a website dedicated. We try to share as much as we can. And we are going to edit the same book just with a couple of additional information. Would you like to add something, Maria? Right. Are there any other questions? There's a red color there. We are running late. Thank you very much to Thomas who jumped in, and I did not eat any oysters yesterday, so I was here. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.